Welcome everyone. My name is Jody King and I'm with the Alaska PTAC, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And today's topic is featuring the State of Alaska Checkbook. My slide to expand. So a little bit about the PTAC program, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. First of all, our big news is that the program, the Procurement Technical Assistance Program, has moved from the realm of Department of Defense, the Department of Logistics Agency, DLA, and as of October 1st, 2022, we are now under the Department of Defense Office of Small Business Programs. And with that change comes a new logo. So as of October 1st, we are now part of the Apex Accelerators program. And through this calendar year, you'll start to see our branding change from the lovely Alaska PTAC over to the Apex Accelerators. And we're kind of still in that transition process. So for a while, you get to see both names, but we do want to let you know. If you're curious what all that implies for the Apex Accelerators under the Office of Small Business Programs, here is their website. And right now there is some basic information about the move over to the DoD program office and a lot of information on the grants, but that website is growing as we are in our transition phase. What isn't changing is our program. We still provide free assistance with all aspects of government contracting from cradle to grave, start to finish for federal, state, and local purchasing activity, such as today's webinar where we're really focusing on state of Alaska contracting activity. We provide free one-on-one appointments and free workshops. And of course, our Alaska PTAC, soon to be Alaska Apex Accelerator, is one of more than 90 other programs across US, Puerto Rico, and Guam. So you can find out about our program here, our national association. So if you are in a business that has branch offices in other locations, absolutely check out both the AppTech site and the Apex Accelerators. Both list other PTACs in various states. And I'd really like to encourage you that if you do have other locations, it's worth checking out the PTAC in that geographic region. So if you do have an office in Nashville, Tennessee, check out the Tennessee PTAC. While all of our programs really focus on federal contracting, we are each experts in the contracting activity that's in our own backyard. So for me, like today's event, talking about the state of Alaska contracting process, if you, again, using Tennessee as that example, if you have an office in Tennessee, check out and see what that Tennessee PTAC is doing for local activities. Plus, we each get to know our local contracting officers, contracting offices within that geographic region. So it's good to reach out and beyond. It's a great way if you are looking at expanding into a new region that you're not familiar with, absolutely reach out to those other PTACs and see what's going on in that corner of the world. So enough about our sponsors and the changes in our program. Let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about the Alaska Checkbook Online. We're going to introduce it. What is it? What's its purpose? Tips for users. We're going to play on the websites a little bit. We're going to talk about the payment detail reports and how to use the data. And we're going to talk about what is its value for business community. From there, we're going to hop over to USASpending and kind of follow back and forth from where is the money flowing from that federal realm into the state of Alaska. And we're going to look at how to evaluate some of those funds coming through and what you as businesses, how you may be able to follow that forward. And then we're going to talk about from checkbook data to State Department websites. So how are those funds being used and what is that potential for future contract opportunity? So the point of looking at the state of the checkbook is to go ahead and see, well, like the federal government, government is always spending. Government needs those goods and services provided by industry to be able to meet those day-to-day goal activities, and it does that through a contracting process. And like the federal government, who has USASpending and the Federal Procurement Data System, where we can see, we have that transparency of that procurement process and where those federal dollars are being spent. The state also has that with their Alaska Checkbook online. So this presentation is mostly a lot of screenshots, and then we're going to spend time on the websites and going through. I have screenshots of some pre-searches that I've done just for purpose of the education, but depending on time, I'm hoping to be able to spend a little bit more time on the website itself so that by the end of this presentation, you'll feel comfortable using these sites. So welcome to the Alaska Department of Administration, Division of Finance, and it talks about the overview for the checkbook online. And why do we have this? Well, it allows constituents to view financial information in searchable formats. And the checkbook process has morphed from what it was, and it's kind of funny because my last spreadsheet was downloaded in 2013, and I still have that document, and the process has really changed on how you use that data. And then for a couple of years, the checkbook kind of went off-site, offline. It wasn't as available. And now it's changed to where we have these finished reports that we can pull, we can download and take a look at where are those funds being spent. But again, that whole goal is to view financial information in searchable formats. It's really what are we going to do with that information that helps us determine if we want to enter into the realm of state contracting to see, where is that opportunity? Give me just a second here. Okay, so financial information that can be found on this website consists of the following details. Vendors and grantees to whom non-confidential payments were issued are provided in the report. And of course, as always, recipient information presented includes name, location, vendor, the grantee versus payment, and the department that issued it. So there is given a lot of information. Keep in mind, there is funding that has been spent that is not necessarily listed in that report. And the website talks about more things that are withheld from that public purview. And of course, here we have the website link directly to that website. Let's get to our next slide. All right, so kind of the bottom of the same page, it has the helpful links. It talks about view, summary, detailed reports, state expenditures and agency contacts, payments from payment system flagged as confidential. So it talks about what can we not see. So if you're curious about what is withheld, and it does talk about PDS or PFD, the permanent fund dividend payments. That data is not found on the state checkbook. There is a link that shows you that you do need to go to the PFD website if you're looking for information specific to those payments. So under the tips for users, we can see payment purpose is classified at various levels. Expense category is the highest level. And then under that, under each expense category, we have subcategories, and then payments are recorded as expense types. And these are really important for when we get into and search and are trying to decide how are we defining what type of industrial activity are we looking for? And I shouldn't say industrial, but industry, services, goods, construction, those just to name a few. And we'll see when we get into those reports. Just as a reminder, the state's fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th, with year-end accruals made through August 31st. So what I've downloaded is fiscal information for fiscal year 23. Obviously, we don't have a complete year, so we're going to have information based up, I would say, about halfway through this fiscal year. And like with the federal government, there is delays before all of that information is accrued, balanced, of course, with the accounting process, and then provided as data in through those reports. And they do have a phone number and email link here from the website if you have suggestions to improve website presentation. So contact Department of Finance, or I'm sorry, Division of Finance Management by email or direct phone number. So more information for the checkbook online. So each payment detail report includes all vendor grantee payments and displays the following fields. I'm not going to read this full list because, again, we'll get to see all of this information when we actually open the Excel document. But it does give us date range of payments, name, location of the vendor or grantee, the requesting department, the amount and warrant number, and of course the purpose of the payment in the form of expense type. So what this gives us, looking at just the data on those last 4 bullets, is this lets us see which businesses within this have received payments from the state of Alaska through contract vehicles and some other services. And this is where we need to really understand that agency procurement process and the various dollar thresholds. Now, I'm not going to be focusing on that topic during today's presentation. So there's a little bit of assumption that you understand that language and that process while we're looking at the checkbook. However, if you're really new to the state of Alaska contracting process, we have a fabulous webinar that's going to be held next week, which is how to do business with the state of Alaska. And I do have the registration information and more about that webinar towards the end of this presentation, so I do have a slide for that. So I am going on the assumption that we understand what we're looking for: name, location, vendor, requesting department, within that's the State Department, and the amount, warrant number, and of course purpose of payment as we're looking at these expense types. And we're going to be thinking this from account type designations. Other helpful information, we have the agency contact link. So there's a point of contact for each state department regarding that procurement process. It's a great document. You can click on this link. Of course, I've got the website down here at the bottom. And under the tips for users, I just want to point out that the payment purpose is shown by the account code and description. And if you have questions about specific payments, please inquire with the agency contacts. So that ties you back up to this list. So on this same website, what we're looking at is we have an option of pre-created reports, and you can see the type of reports that they're offering, fiscal year 23, and this is just a screenshot of a very small component, and it goes back quite a ways where you can download and see the spending history for these contracting and expenditure data. Even though I'm just showing you snippets of the website now, I do plan to go to the website and kind of walk you through that process of being able to download all of those documents, since I realized just kind of seeing tidbits of each screen of each website can just be a little confusing of where to go next. So we will be getting on those websites directly. All right, next slide. So for just purpose of this screenshot, I was looking through here, I clicked on the fiscal year 2023 report, and I wanted the Excel version. I then was able to download the Excel document, and I've got the file name here. And what I did is spend quite a few hours last night trying to remember how to create pivot tables and have ways of being able to roll up these categories, which is really funny, nothing like dusting off old skills. But one of the things I'd like to recommend, that if you are really interested in doing research with the state of Alaska, the Excel spreadsheets has a significant amount of valuable data on this information. Taking the time, watch a few YouTube videos, pull out some old books, learn how to do pivot tables, learn how to run subtotals in Excel will save you a lot of searching through line by line items. Okay, so again, just an idea, and what I've done is I've just rolled up the dollar amounts, the expenditures, and this is by that highest level of expense category. So if you remember, there were the 3 levels, and for all departments. So if I were to, in the Excel spreadsheet itself, click on this little plus sign, you'll get to see all the subcategories under agriculture. So I just kind of wanted to let you see, even though we are only not halfway through the state fiscal year, it started July 1st. So we're a little over halfway through the state year. We can already see the state has a healthy spending. And this also is not necessarily just made up. Let me rephrase this. So while we have healthy state spending, keep in mind that not all of the funds shown were necessarily pulled from tax base information. This is also representative of a lot of the federal funds that have moved in through the grant process and through contracts from the federal to the state and then down to each of the local state spending departments. And that's why we want to pull in and talk about the USASpending. But just again, just kind of a snapshot, an idea of the different expense categories, and it becomes more clear when we open the document itself. So from USASpending to Alaska Checkbook, so where are the funds going? And well, and to flip that on the reverse, where are these funds coming from? So this is when we kind of swap over and we want to know where are those federal funds moving from the various federal agencies into our state coffers and through what contract or grant opportunity, so that we can see these opportunities filter down from that state acceptance level down into the various departments, where then they then result in contracting opportunities. So let's play on this site a little bit. So usaspending.gov, that is the website in its entirety. And what we do on the website is we click this advanced search, and I've got just a few snapshots here. So this is a screenshot. So this is the full federal, and keep in mind when we are talking fiscal year, FY fiscal year, that the date range is going to be different from state to federal. So the federal fiscal year starts October 1st, runs through September 30th. The state, again, starts July 1st, runs through June 30th. So what we're going to wind up seeing is slightly different time variations, and we're going to have to look at multiple federal fiscal years to capture what was being moved into the state for fiscal years. This particular screenshot is just to kind of give you an idea of the dollar amount of federal funds that move through in the federal fiscal year 2022. So you can see we had over $3.3 billion move through the state through contract, grant opportunities, and other information. This particular is just screenshot just shows all the contract. But what I want to show and focus on right now that I think is going to have the most impact for us in the business realm is the grant dollars moving through the state of Alaska, because this is where we are seeing the grants from the federal agencies down to the state departments themselves. So we can see that for my filter, and again, if you go back a couple, I click this advanced search and I've selected, sorry, let me jump one more, the 2 fiscal years to make sure that we're capturing that earlier part of the start of the state fiscal year for state of Alaska. And I've noted that I want the recipient type to be all government. Now there's a few, I wouldn't say that it's a perfect filter for the data because we do see some contracts, but as you can see here, I just kind of grabbed a quick screenshot and we were able to see quite a few award data that is awarded to Department of Commerce. So if we're talking federal funds moving through Department of Commerce, well, how is that going to impact us as that potential for contracting opportunity as the business? So what I then did is we have our USASpending information. I clicked on Department of Commerce to get some more specific data, and it gave us this snapshot where I could see how much money was moved over, and this is beyond just this fiscal year. Unfortunately, these numbers kind of go back for a farther history, but we can see just the Alaska Department of Commerce, Community Economic Development has received, 142.7 million from these 17 transactions. And if you want to see this particular search and dig into the details, of course, here is that website link. So again, we have Department of Health, Human Services, and recipient, sub-awarding agency under Alaska Department of Commerce, where they accepted the funds, and it rolled down to the Department of Health, and we can just see very specific information. And we can start to see that this one activity down to the Children and Family Services had that $3.3 million grant activity. So we can start to see, all right, well, one thing that we know, if the state of Alaska departments are accepting these funds, it's not something that we just get to put in a savings account and keep for rainy day. It's kind of one of those use it or lose it. So as the state is then receiving these funds, they're going to be rolling down through various programs. So my next thought was, well, how is the Department of Commerce spending that money? How are they getting that money out into the state itself? What type of programs? So I did a little bit of research. So this kind of ties us back to where we started, from taking checkbook data and then doing a deeper dive through the State Department websites. So we're going to follow the funds through the state from that federal entrance point. So here's the easy way to get started. And we're going to come back and finish that train of data for the Department of Commerce. But first, let me show you how you can find the website for the various state departments. So starting with the home website, the official state website, alaska.gov, if you click under home here, it lets you go to the department list. And that's going to, of course, bring up this page where we can then see all of the state departments, and we click on the name of the department that we're looking for. Now, of course, I picked on Department of Commerce because I wanted to continue that thought of, where is that $142.7 million from the federal government moving? Where is it moving through the state of Alaska? So when I clicked on the department here, Commerce, Community, Economic Development, this was the home page. It gave me a list of all of the divisions and programs within or underneath the Department of Commerce. And it's like, well, we knew from the data that we were looking at this division of Community and Regional Affairs. So again, I clicked on the page to be able to see that website. And what I was able to find is, well, how did they support their mission? So here is this division talking about their obligations to the public, their purpose of existence in providing information. And one of the things that they have is a division section for grants and funding, local government assistance, local government resource desk, mapping, analytics, and data resources. So under that information, we could then further click on the grants and funding and see how are they taking these funds received. And you can see there's two different programs here, Disaster Recovery Alaska and Mitigation. How are they taking those funds and offering them out? So if we're now looking at that information and thinking, okay, we have a specific division, a specific department, I then in turn take this back to our spreadsheet, our Department of Commerce, and you can see that again, here's where we started from the USASpending. We went to the state website. We saw that here's their various sections. And then I went back into the checkbook and I started looking at the departments, which is, and they're all numbered. You'll get to see in the spreadsheet, Department of Commerce, Economic, and under the grants. And then we can start seeing where the money is going to. So we could see from that previous page where they have different programs, and you can see more. And then again, this is just a very small section for purpose of kind of giving you an idea of how we can run this data from one site to another and kind of build a picture of opportunity out there. So again, following that back and then looking at, well, where did the city, where is it spending those funds that they received? And you can see the timeline here. This is up through February, and it's just a small screenshot. So we can see that the grants have been then awarded to these cities of. Now, if you are in an industry and you provide consulting, accounting, the type of assistance that would really support that day-to-day operation, training, software programming, any of that type of thing where the various city governments would need assistance, well, we know that they then have those fund opportunities moving from the federal government through the state, and that gives us our end user we want to reach out to and what is it that they need. And we can, of course, even go to the city of website, depending on the size of that, or reach out to the local government for that community and build that relationship, knowing that there's a funding source from that federal government through. And ultimately, again, purpose of those grants is to be spent on specific end purposes. Shoo, a lot of words. Questions, anyone? So let me give you another example, and then we're going to actually open up the spreadsheet and kind of play. And then if you guys have more specific or things that you want me to look at, we're going to do a lot of this live. So here's my other example. So I looked at from, kind of reverse this, from the state expenditure report, Department 25, Department of Transportation and Public Facilities, and I want to know, well, what is their construction activity? So construction is a subtype. It falls, you can see it here, under that entity expense, or I'm sorry, under the expense category of structures in infrastructure. So we can see just by expanding this one expense category, then we can see the expense types: architect, engineer, construction, inspection, testing, material supplies, right-of-way, royalty, structure, infrastructure, acquisition costs, and utility relocation. And we can see the dollars amount that has, been spent to date for this activity. All right, so then let's think, my immediate goal was, all right, we know that there's a lot of DOT programs. They have state DBE certification program. There's that relationship between the US DOT and the federal highway funds in those grant opportunities, for highway and transportation support down to the state. So where is those funds being divvied out? So then I went and reversed that, went back to USASpending. And again, what I wanted to look at, well, instead of just looking at the individual activity, I wanted to see what is the federal DOT. And you could see the awarded amount was 1.1 billion from 1287 transactions. And of course, I can click Review Awards to this recipient, State of Alaska. And you can see right here, here's the recipient. This was one transaction activity, the screenshot here, and it gives you the information in USASpending site of who was the access, or who is that access point within the state and how is it defined. And then here, another great bit of information is we can see the trend for the federal dollars coming into the state, specifically from US DOT to our state DOT in regards to our federal highways and marine transportation. Again, here's the link. Most of the time, if you guys click the link that has my search, it does okay. Sometimes it breaks that continuity, but I'll show you how to pull that search data up. So I thought, oh, great. So we could see state DOT. We had an idea from the spreadsheet. We took a look at seeing what the funds were like, where are they headed, who are the individuals in the state, the different departments that are receiving those same. And then what I did is I decided, well, let's do a little bit of digging about that state department. So I went back to alaska.gov. I clicked on departments. I clicked on the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities, so DOT and PF. And I looked at, go ahead, this is what I saw from that homepage, all the various subdivisions. I clicked on the procurement section because from the point of a business, really this is where, when are those funds have that possibility of making it to my business from that entire financial chain. So the procurement activity. And of course, here we are, DOT procurement and contracting website. And this is just a few screenshots of, well, How do you do business with DOT and PF? What are the contracting opportunities? And so they talk about their 3 areas, procurement and contracting. I just grabbed a screenshot of the 2, the supply services, construction and maintenance. And what I don't have a screenshot is the fleet vehicle maintenance as well. So one of the things that I want to talk about before we actually start getting to the websites, when we are looking at this data, the checkbook is going to give us the past data, the contract has been awarded, the money has been spent, here's the agency that spent it, here is the recipient of those funds. So when we're looking backwards, the state, like federal government, if they've bought it once, most likely they're going to buy it again. Now, the challenge of looking at the financial data for a purchasing history, it is a little harder with state data than when we're looking at the federal data. In the federal realm, we can go into FPDS and we can get all of that huge database and we can see multiple years and see a spending history right on the screen in front of us. When we want that same concept with the state data, we're going to have to download multiple reports by year and then do our little manipulation with those Excel spreadsheets with that data. And then we can start tracking and looking at that from a year to year to see, well, 1, who are the incumbents that are doing well, being recipients of that spending of those contract opportunities? And 2, is there a consistent trend with the state buying? So if we see that the federal DOT, that these funds are moving into the state at these dollar amount, we can then, by going through the individual Excel reports and pulling this together, we can start to see where those funds are then being rolled down through the state process. The one thing that we are missing in this, there is not going to be a one-to-one match between that. Oops, let me get back to the right page. Sorry about that. This 1.1 billion in the state, because keep in mind, this is state, this Excel report is going to be state expenditures. We can see where the state has then issued some of the funds to cities of and sub-units, but there is somewhere that money does transfer, and I am not an expert to know if we can see the full monies moving through the various sub-levels of state government into that local, such as Municipality of Anchorage, the Matsu Borough. Again, I take a little bit more digging in Excel if we're going to see those grant opportunities are being dispersed through the state. So not quite the same level of transparency that we get with the federal realm that we get with the state. But it does give us a pretty good idea for that potential contracting activity. So one of the other things that I want to talk about before we get into those documents themselves is keep in mind, why are we learning how to do this? Yes, it's great to see where there have been previous contracts. And if we look and think about how do we define our business under these expense type codes, these expense categories and expense types, and then we can kind of look and see, well, which agencies, which state departments and divisions are issuing those contracts, we can then go back and do research on the various divisions. The state of Alaska really does have a fabulous website, and there is a web page for each department homepage, as well as all of the various subgroups, the divisions, and authorities that fall under that department. So hop back up here, we saw DOT, all of these. You can find a website and find more information on each one of these activities that falls under the realm under Department of Transportation. So each state department, and if we hop back up here, here's a good shot of the list, really does have that various information. And what we want to do as savvy business people is, 1, understand what is being spent by whom, by which department, and who are those recipients, those potential competitors. But we also want to take the time to educate ourselves about these departments and divisions and find out, are they a good business matchup? Or let me rephrase that, are they a good potential client for my business in the industry in which I conduct business? So taking the time to then review these various websites and find out what is it that, you know, just here doing business with DOT and PF, what are they looking for? What information are they offering? How are they helping us, educating us as the public, figure out how to do business with? What are those venues to find out about the contracting opportunity? What are the things that are important enough to this particular division? Here we can see the little screenshot for ports and harbors. What are they talking about? What language? How are they defining the regions? What types of things might we see coming up where we can then start building those business relationships with the employees, with those decision makers, with those managers, that program operator, and I'm using that kind of a broad term as opposed to giving a specific title for someone, but the engineers, the program managers, the division managers, and supervisors that are ultimately going to be given the budget and have those projects for which they are chasing federal funds. How are they going to go about and then disperse those funds through these procurement windows? So as we take this information, we want to really flesh it out and find where those relationships are going to give us the strongest opportunity as business owners then to start building that relationship. And at that point, that is really no different than any commercial client where you still need to build that one-to-one relationship. The entity needs to know you exist, who you guys are, what you offer, how can they reach you, what information, where can your company provide this particular entity in meeting those day-to-day business activities. Questions on any of that? All right. So just real quick, this is the webinar that we have coming up next. It's going to be presented by Lois Lemus, the Procurement Training Officer with the State of Department under Administration with the Office of Procurement and Property Management, OPPM. And so it's next week, the 14th from 2 to 3. Registration is still open, and she's really going to be talking about how to do business with the state. So if you want to learn more about state contracting activity, it's going to be a great workshop. All right, so let's get out of the PowerPoint realm. The only slide I had left is contact information, and let's go to these sites themselves and kind of walk through it. So I gave you guys a pretty solid overview, but how do we find everything? The best way for the checkbook online, of course you have the link, but honestly, if you just Google Alaska Checkbook or Checkbook online, it takes you right to the website. So here's your financial pages, your home, the overview. You guys already started to see some of the information, different linked sites. And of course, we saw this, the helpful users, the helpful links, tips for users, but here's the website. What we wanted to know about was the expense reports. So we have various payment detail reports, and this is what I have downloaded. So more information, this is the checkbook online page, but we then, if we want that payment detail reports. So you guys did get to see little bits of the screenshot, but I just wanted to show you the page itself. They're letting you know final. So this is going to be comprehensive. We have to go through, I'm sure, from that accounting process and close the state books. So that final report isn't anticipated until October. But what we have then are interim reports. So we can see here, and this is the one I've downloaded, this fiscal year 2023 from July to February 5th. I chose the Excel document and downloaded it. So let me show you what that looks like. Now, I realize this screen here, this is what it looks like when it's downloaded. It's a bit hard to see, especially if you're on a smaller mobile device. But again, if you look at your handout section of the GoToWebinar. I do have that uploaded. If by chance you are not able to download any of those handouts, just reply to your webinar invitation and ask me to send you the handouts, and I will be more than happy to email those to you. Now, of course, you can download it. The one difference is I've set up and I've created this pivot table. And if any of you guys are Excel experts, this is a very, 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 very basic pivot table. It took me a while to figure it out, I'm sad to say. But what I did then is just went in here and changed from this individual detail to a summary where I could just say my business is involved in, and I just kind of want to gather that high level screenshot. With the payment detail, these are set up, and you can see that each screen, let me see if I can get that just a little bit bigger for you. It has the department, and each one of these has a sort filter mechanism already built into the report. So this really is handy where we can decide what we want to look at. The one thing that I think the state could offer on that home page is to give us a Word document that has Department 1 is Office of Government, Department 2, and to give us a complete list of what are the expense categories and what are the expense types. I think that would be really handy to be able to see that in a comprehensive Excel document as opposed to trying to pull this through. So let's go back to our Department of Transportation, and I kind of played with this and preset this last night. All I did was create a second copy so I could just have this set up for you. And we could see where, again, that was Department 25. We can see the department name, we can see the expense category, and we can actually filter each one of these. And what I've done, I don't know if you guys can see that. Here's that drop down if I want to filter, but I selected I wanted to filter by not all of them, but just by construction. So the data I have on the screen that's been pre-sorted for me is now just the construction expense type of expenditures from the DOT and PF. And now what I can do is I can start looking at, well, who are these recipients? So again, we have the vendor names, any DBAs, aliases, and we can see the issue date, the document, and the ID. If we wanted, I was trying to get another pivot table. This is where I would do it off a copy where I could get it to subtotal by vendor name instead of trying to dig through all of this. The downside of the checkbook is there's really no way to click on these links and get payment detail. Well, what was the contract for? What was this $120,000 for? So that's where I have to admit the FPDS, we can actually go in and view and get a little the contract detail. This is really about the checkbook. It's where the money is flowing to and who's the recipients. But this is where, are these companies, competitors? If they're not competitors, are they in the same line of business? Well, we could grab the business name. If you wanted to see what they're doing, we could then check out websites, find out more information from the company. We could even look them up, take that over to the federal arena, look up their information in SAM, see if they have a SAM registration, and we can see what federal contracts they're doing as well. So if you're looking for potential businesses, maybe you're not in the construction arena, but you provide you're a supplier or a vendor for specific, or maybe you do health and safety training for construction employees or safety management programs. So you want to see, well, who are the construction recipients, award recipients with the state, and then this gives you a data. You can then take that information, and it gives you a starting point in your marketing, reaching out to K&E Enterprises and say, congratulations, I see you guys had several construction awards with the department, State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities. Our company offers whatever it is, insert sales data there to help support those type of ongoing activities. So what we're doing is we're now taking this data and we're trying to make it usable for day-to-day. What is it that we need for our business. And this is about as far down the information as we can go. It does give us the state information. And if we go back to the full report, we can always do a search if we want to see where is this recipient. Actually, let's do AAA storage. You know, what are they doing with other agencies? We can then grab their name. We can go back to our main document where I've sorted absolutely everything. I don't have anything do that Control F, that find command, and we can pull a list for whatever businesses that we want. Just find all. So we can see, you know, all of the various contracts. So there's different ways, depending on your comfort level playing in Excel, that you can then take the data and pull this out. So again, office questions. Does anybody want me to do a particular search by industry type here while I have this Excel document open? Again, we can see all of the business categories under this filter button. So you can see agriculture benefits. Of course, it's a little bit easier to see under the pivot table here, agriculture benefits. And with this pivot table I set up, so again, if we're looking at moving costs, we can expand that, see if there's any under capital lease payments, equipment, ambulance. So we have medical, scientific, safety. You can see how it's further broken out. If I extend this again, now we can start to see I have this where we can see recipients under the equipment. The only thing that you're not going to see, oh, and I'm sorry, I do have pre-filtered Department of Transportation, as opposed if I come back here and select all of the departments, then we can start seeing all of the. So having the pivot table set up is kind of handy. You can always copy paste and of course build a better one. But if we're looking for, again, construction, architect, engineer services, we want to see that for all the recipients. And this is just going to show you everyone that's received a contract under this expense type of architect, engineer. The pivot table, you're losing that data of which agency. All right. Questions, anyone? So let me switch gears again. And again, this document has been uploaded for you in the handouts. The only other thing I just wanted to show you really quickly is how to use the USASpending if you're not familiar with this website. So I've gone USAspending.gov is the main website. I clicked on advanced search and I've added my filter. You can see I want the fiscal year 23. Again, this is federal fiscal year versus state. I could add in fiscal year 22. You can see it gave me a green check. And I came down here. I wanted the location because I'm just looking at state data. I don't care about other states at this point in time. Selected the United States, Alaska. You can dial it down by county if you want. This is kind of handy too. I'm going to add this filter. You can see green, it just did this. And of course, I'm looking for recipient type. I just want government. Where's the money flowing for government? I can look up individual owners. Let me submit my search so that it updates that data. And it's going to take it a little bit as it's gathering. And of course, you can see the different tabs. We can see contract activity, grant, direct payments, loans, and other. So just following the premise that I used for the webinar earlier, looking at grant data, and be patient, it's sifting through crazy amounts of data. Then we can sort by recipients, and we can then come in here and look at the individual activity. You can download this data. It dumps it into multiple tables. You can see right here your download button. I've done that before, and it is, again, if you're really great at Excel documents and building those sorting mechanisms to use that Excel data, there's a lot of great information. You can take the federal data and then really get more detail than what we're going to be able to do from the state reports. Because again, those state detail reports are very specific, where they're talking about just that, payment. So here's that end goal of the expense type reports for the state of Alaska. All right, so back to USASpending. So like here, this contract, Military Veteran Affairs, I can go ahead and click on it, give it a moment to load, and it's giving you the history, detail, spending history, and of course it has just some generic. So the top 5 spending entities from federal and for the state of Alaska and sub-agencies. So just more general information here. NAICS codes under which they've used. So it does kind of give you an idea. So just based on this one contact activity of Military Veterans Affairs, it's tied to this NAICS code, which is radio networks. We could kind of go back to the state Excel spreadsheet, take a look of where would that type of radio, would that be under equipment? Would that be under safety? We have to kind of apply a bit of logic, how we might, so maybe that's under equipment, communications equipment, and we could possibly see Motorola. Now there's some assumptions. It's not a smooth transition, but it kind of gives us an idea of where which business is ultimately the recipient of those federal funds that we're seeing through. All right, everyone. Questions? Anybody want me to do a particular search or give me an industry type we can look at more specifically? You guys are being really quiet. Okay. A lot of great information here. Let me go ahead and just pull up. If you're like me and sometimes you just have to let all that information sift and figure out how I'm using that on the day-to-day, and then you have questions after the webinar is over or next week, reach out to PTech. Transitioning over to our Apex accelerators, the Alaska Apex accelerators, but reach out to our office. Here's a list of our staff and our contact information. Let us know if you would like help with this concept. How can you use this more specific? That's one downside of the webinars is they tend to be more generic. I pre-build my examples and maybe they are or they are not a good fit for you. Tune in next week. If you have time, it's a 1-hour presentation. Join myself and Lois on learning how to do business with the state of Alaska. A lot of great information. She's been working really hard on this presentation. And then the third state of Alaska webinar is going to be held on February 23rd, and that is going to be deciphering a solicitation from the state of Alaska requirements concept. So I've done that previously in the past, looking for deciphering a solicitation from the federal, and now we're kind of tweaking that and doing a decipher solicitation from the state contracting activity. And that will be on February 23rd. So thank you everyone for joining me today. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to add anything. And if I don't have any further questions, well, you guys get a little extra few minutes back to your day that you originally blocked out for today's presentation.